This will be my character profile on Rachel Hunter from Outlander. If you are looking to avoid spoilers from the books or the TV show, please do keep on scrolling. So Rachel Hunter is the sister of Denzel Hunter, and both of them, as we know, are Quakers. And because her brother Denzel is choosing to serve as an army surgeon for the American rebels during the war, they are kicked out of meeting. Their parents are both deceased. Their mother died when she was born, and her father drowned 3 years later in an accident. The local Society of Friends, which is the name for the Quaker group that they were associated with, took them in as children, and they were raised by the members of that community. Members of that Quaker community also tried to find living family members for Rachel and Denny, and they did find a man named John Hunter who was in London. And John Hunter was a surgeon, so he provided Denny a way to travel and learn how to be a surgeon himself. In the books, he travels to Philadelphia to attend a college there, and he also travels to London to learn from John Hunter himself as well. When he returned, Rachel was still there, and he came back to her having learned how to keep a house properly, and so she travels with him all over and keeps his home for him. Now, the two of them believe that being able to fight for their liberty is a gift from God, and therefore they must join the rebel cause in order to do so. And because of their beliefs, they were then basically ostracized by the group that had taken care of them after their parents died. Denny is the one who is basically offering his services as a surgeon, and Rachel just accompanies him, and that is at what point we are introduced to them in the show, is them just starting out on their journey joining the Continental Army. In the books, they first meet Ian and William in 1777 when William hurts his arm, and Ian brings him to the settlement that they are located in search of medical help, and we learn that that is when Denny intends to join the Continental Army as a surgeon. On their journey, that is when we had them with that run-in with the couple at the house where they spend the night, and the couple tries to attack them in the middle of the night. That is all book accurate, and it brings Rachel and William closer, and also she is fascinated by young Ian as well at this point in time. They later part ways with William and head to Fort Ticonderoga, where they end up meeting Claire. This is when Rachel sees young Ian again because he left William with them after his arm is injured. And so she's been thinking about young Ian, not realizing that she would run into him again. And when they do, she's just very fascinated by him. He's unlike anyone she's ever come across before. And him being a Scottish person, knowing the ways and customs of the American Indians he was around is just very intriguing to someone whose life was so isolated within their faith. In the books, there's a lot more commentary between Rachel and Ian and how their relationship dynamic would not work just given her being a Quaker and him being a man of violence, and how that does not align with her religious beliefs. And I think the show has done a good job condensing multiple conversations that they have into a few very effective ones. So this conversation they have at the end of episode 10 really encapsulates how Rachel has come to terms with the man Ian is and is willing to make that sort of compromise with him that he does not need to convert to a Quaker in order for them to be together. So while Ian goes back to Scotland and leaves Rollo in Rachel's care, they are in Valley Forge. Rachel and Denzel are in Valley Forge, and William ends up coming to them under a flag of truce in order to ask Denny to come back to Philadelphia with him to perform surgery on his cousin Henry. When that happens, they spend Christmas in Philadelphia, and Denzel actually is reacquainted with William's other cousin, Dorothea Gray, who we haven't seen on screen yet. He actually knew her from his time in London when he was learning how to become a surgeon, and so they are reacquainted while he is in Philadelphia. After that, we obviously got the events of this episode. That takes place in the books in May, when Ian returns and Rolo runs away from her and she is captured by Archbug. And the whole storyline with Archbug is wrapped up very quickly in the show. In the books, it has a lot more breathing room to kind of really have that moment be a little more impactful. I think they sped it up a lot in the show, so I don't know if it landed quite as well as it did in the books. And Rachel is also involved with Marsley and Fergus in the books, which, as we know in the show, they've kind of cut those two out of the storyline. So in the books, she keeps an eye on Fergus's print shop for Marsley and is well acquainted with Marsley and Fergus. Now, the part that we haven't seen yet is most of their storyline in Written in My Own Heart's Blood, which is the book after Echo and the Bone, which is where much of the story right now is taking place. And young Ian and Rachel talk about how Ian became a Mohawk and his first marriage to his Mohawk wife. And they meet up with William again on their way to Philadelphia. By this point, Ian and Rachel are engaged, and so Rachel tells William about her engagement to young Ian, and William has already developed feelings for Rachel by this point, and he's actually pretty angry about it, and he hits young Ian. He actually ends up getting young Ian arrested for assaulting an officer. Again, William in the books was almost insufferable at points. He was very entitled and childish, and he made a lot of decisions that I didn't really love, this being one of them. Rachel is obviously so upset with William for having young Ian arrested, and they have a very brutal exchange of words, and they leave on very bad terms with one another at this point in the book. And major spoiler, Jamie is in Philadelphia at this point. So Rachel meets Jamie Fraser, tells him what happened, and Jamie talks to William and basically forces him to go get young Ian out of prison and jail and set things right between them. This is also the point at which Rachel and Ian return back to Lord John Grey's house, and Jenny, Ian's mother, came with Jamie on the boat, and he is reunited with his mother again. Rachel and Ian are married in like the late summer in Philadelphia. I think it's in 1777, and in 1779 they return back to North Carolina to Fraser's Ridge together. By this point, Rachel is pregnant with their first son, and she delivers him in June, I think, of 1779 at Fraser's Ridge. Their son for a long time is called Augie, and there's a lot more about him in the most recent Outlander book, Go and Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. I don't want to spoil it too much because I think the show may not follow the books from a certain point on, and they will take her character and Ian's character and potentially run in a very different direction. But I can obviously, at that point in time, do another video about how they are depicted in Go and Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. I think the important thing to note here as we are watching the current events play out is that even though it's fairly obvious that William's feelings towards Rachel are more romantic in nature, Rachel always looks at William in a very platonic way, which I think is being depicted very well on the show. She has always had eyes for young Ian, and their love story and dynamic in the books is one of my favorites. I think she's a great, great character, and Izzy is doing a wonderful job portraying her. I will do a separate video on Denzel for those interested, but the Hunters are some of my favorite characters in the story, so I really love talking about them, and giving them a little bit more screen time this season has made me really happy.